morning, everyone, and welcome in for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. If you're joining us for the first time, like some of our audience, including our Panamanian group are today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And everything we do goes to YouTube. So if you want to see this in 3 weeks or 3 years, or like 4,000 other broadcasts, you can head there and do just that with some of the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. Before we dive in with today's topic du jour, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun, you can pull up that game pin below and do just that. Extra way to keep it fun and interactive. Now, of all the programs you could have joined us for, I'm really excited you're here today because today, we are back with one of my very favorite scientists, one of my very favorite places in Wembley, Alberta. We are at the Phillip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum with Dr. Emily Bamforth. As a boy, I thought I was going to be a paleontologist. Like, dinosaurs captured my imagination so much. And like many kids, I found some other things to love over time. My career path changed a little bit. Well, Emily's did not. And so she is going to walk us through their amazing facilities today, a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. And as one of the most passionate people we've ever had on the broadcast, I hope by the end you are as obsessed with dinosaurs as she is. Without further ado, I'm going to zip it because you're not here for me. Dr. Emily, welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you so much for being here and take us away.
Great. Well, thank you and welcome this morning to the Phillip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum. We are a dinosaur museum in northern Alberta, just outside a city called Grande Prairie. So for those of you who may not be familiar with where that is, let's take a look at a map over here. So this is a map of North America. Now you may be looking at that thinking, that doesn't look like North America. Well, it actually is. But this is North America 74 million years ago. That is the time of the dinosaurs. That's the time where we get our dinosaurs here in Alberta. And back then, North America looked a little different, kind of generally the same shape, except the big difference was that there was a seaway that was splitting North America in half from east to west. So there was this western continent here, and paleontologists, we call that Laramidia. And this is where we find all of the dinosaurs in Alberta and Montana and Wyoming. They all lived on this part of the continent. And then to the east, there was another continent that we called Appalachia. So our dinosaurs that we find here are just about there. There's a little black dot there. That is where Grande Prairie was 74 million years ago. And our dinosaurs were basically living on the beach. They were living in beachfront property, which is kind of exciting. Today, Grande Prairie is not beachfront property. We are in the middle of a forest. But back then, our dinosaurs were living right on the coast. So it was a really great place to be a dinosaur. The world was very different. It was very warm, very wet. And we had lots of dinosaurs that were living here. So I want to introduce you to 3 dinosaurs that we get up here and the bones that we excavate. So let me take you over here. First, I'm going to show you our dinosaur superstar from this area. So if you want to follow me, this is a great dinosaur here. This is a dinosaur called a Pachyrhinosaurus. So pachy means thick, rhino means nose, and saurus means lizard. So this is our thick-nosed lizard. Now, if you look at this guy, basically it is one of the horned dinosaurs. So basically a relative of the Triceratops. But instead of having a horn on its nose, our Pachyrhinosaurs have a big bony bump on their nose, and we call that a boss. That's what makes this a dinosaur different from all of the other horned dinosaurs. So Pachyrhinosaurus was a super cool dinosaur. We actually think they really liked hanging out in the northern part of North America. So they're found in Alberta, they're found in Alaska. I know we've got a classroom from Alaska today. Pachyrhinosaurs are also an Alaskan dinosaur, but they actually don't go too much further south. So they seem to like hanging out in these northern places. And the cool thing about Pachyrhinosaurs is we think they moved in enormous herds of animals. And how do we know that? Well, when we find their fossils, they are always in groups. So it's very rare that we would find an individual Pachyrhinosaurus. Mostly when we find them in the fossil record, they're in groups. Now, why is Pachyrhinosaurus so our superstar dinosaur here? Well, about a 20-minute drive from our museum here, there is a big Pachyrhinosaurus bone bed. So bone bed is an area where we get a whole bunch of dinosaurs all jumbled together. And our bone bed at Pipestone Creek has up to 10,000 Pachyrhinosaurs in it. So it was a big, gigantic herd that basically died there and they got preserved there. So because of that, we know an awful lot about pachyrhinosaurs. So if you take a look at this animal, it's about the size of an Indian elephant, sort of a large rhino or a small elephant. And if you can imagine 74 million years ago, we had herds of thousands of these things roaming around. So you might wonder, how did thousands of pachyrhinosaurs end up being deposited in one place? Well, we think this was a herd of animals, maybe on a seasonal migration. So they live somewhere further south, they're going somewhere further north to maybe find their summer feeding grounds or their nesting grounds. And one terrible day, something happens that wipes out the entire herd. And we think that the thing that happened was actually a flood. So they got caught in a flash flood. If you look, they have this big, heavy head. They're probably not very good at swimming. And so they probably all drowned and died in that one area. Very sad for the pachyrhinosaurs, but really great for us paleontologists, because now we can dig up their bones and we can learn a lot about this dinosaur. So this is the adult dinosaur here. And if you come around the corner, just underneath the adult's legs, we have a little baby pachyrhinosaurus as well. So one of the great things about our Pipestone Creek bone bed is we have big adult animals, we've got the little baby animals, we have the teenager animals, we've got the subadults. Basically, we have the whole age range of dinosaurs. And this means that we can study how dinosaurs grow. And that's actually not something we can do very easily in the fossil record. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why Pipestone Creek is important. And the fact that we have baby dinosaurs and teenage dinosaurs and subadults and adults all in one place is one of the reasons why this bone bed is so important. So Pachyrhinosaurus is our superstar dinosaur from up here, but it's not the only dinosaur we get. So if you follow me, I'll show you another group of dinosaurs that's pretty common here. And that is this group of dinosaurs here. These are what paleontologists call duck-billed dinosaurs or hadrosaurs. So hadrosaurs are actually our most common dinosaur from up here in northern Alberta. Again, we have that big Pachyrhinosaurus herd, but outside of Pipestone Creek bone bed, these are the type of dinosaurs we tend to find. And we actually have a couple of different types of duck-billed dinosaurs, different types of hadrosaurs. This guy here is a dinosaur called a Hipparchosaurus, and this is actually a teenage Hipparchosaurus. And the reason we have a teenager is because we have another bone bed really close to our museum here that just has teenage dinosaurs in it. So we think that these are maybe the dinosaurs that they were born in their little herd, and once they got to a certain age, they left home and they were out sort of roaming around by themselves, trying to establish themselves, finding their own territory. And unfortunately, they also died all at once. Sad for the dinosaurs, but great for paleontologists. So we also have this duck-billed dinosaur here. This is a Corythosaurus. And I really like the name of this dinosaur. So a Corythosaurus is named after a group of ancient people that used to go to war with these very specialized war helmets. So the paleontologists that named this thought that the crest of the animal looked like that helmet. So that's why it's called a Corythosaur. And this guy here is actually probably our most common dinosaur from here. This is an Edmontosaurus. So these were actually really big dinosaurs. These were dinosaurs that were approaching the size of a T-Rex. So these are actually our most common dinosaurs from here. Now there's one more dinosaur I want to show you out here before we go back into our lab, and that is this guy behind me here. So this guy here is a very popular dinosaur in our gallery. When people see it, they immediately think T-Rex, and they would only half be right. This is not a T-Rex. This is an Albertosaurus. So an Albertosaurus is a smaller, older cousin of the T-Rex, but it's actually about only a third the size of a T-Rex. So if you've ever seen a T-Rex skeleton, they are absolutely gigantic. So Albertosaurus is quite a bit smaller than a T-Rex, but we think it was a much faster animal. If you look at the length of those legs, it's a very leggy animal. So the longer the legs an animal has, the faster it can run. So we think despite not being as big as a T-Rex, it was probably just as a scary predator. It was basically, we think these things lived in packs as well. So if you can imagine a pack of these things chasing down our duck-billed dinosaurs, chasing down our pachyrhinosaurs, these were the animals that you probably wanted to be afraid of. And in addition to these guys, we also have a whole host of our little feathered dinosaurs, or like kind of raptor-like dinosaurs. So they were kind of around too, sort of running around under the feet of these big dinosaurs as well. So that just kind of gives you an overview of the types of dinosaurs that we find here around Grand Prairie in northern Alberta. So now I want to take you behind the scenes and show you a little bit about how we know what we know about dinosaurs. So I'll show you about some of the fossils that we pulled out of the ground, and I'll explain to you how we prepare those. So if you want to follow me, we are going to go behind the scenes. And as we make our way to the gallery, if you want to look up at the ceiling there, you'll notice that we have some of our marine reptiles as well. So these are animals that were living in the ocean that was beside the land that the dinosaurs were living in. We have our big long-necked plesiosaur up here. And up here, this is a big mosasaur. So our mosasaurs were kind of like the T-Rex of the sea. So these were things that, again, where they were living in the ocean around the same time as the dinosaurs. All right, so we're gonna go behind the scenes into the lab here. And this is a restricted access area. So you guys are lucky today that you get to see behind the scenes. So let's take a look at what's inside here. All right. So this is our fossil preparation lab. This is kind of where all of the behind the scenes magic happens at the museum. So if you take a look around, you can see that there are basically fossils everywhere in our lab. We always tell our visitors who come back behind the scenes, this is a working facility. And so there's always a little bit of mess, but that means that there's a lot of progress going on. So on the table behind me here, you can see we have all kinds of dinosaur bones from all kinds of places. And one of the things you might notice is that all of our bones have a number on them. So you can think of a museum fossil collection as kind of like a library of dinosaur bones. And just like every library book has got a little barcode on it, all of our specimens have got a number on them. And that's kind of like the barcode on a library book. That number is linked to the record of what this fossil is, who collected it, where it was collected from, what dinosaur it belongs to. If we share our fossils, if we send them out on a loan for people to study, we know which fossils are out on loan as well, and because we keep a record of the numbers. So those numbers are really important. So that's part of taking care of a fossil collection, is tracking, putting numbers on fossils and tracking them. So when our fossils come into the lab here, they usually come in what's called a field jacket. So this big white blob on the ground here, this is a field jacket. This one is almost totally prepared. But this is how fossils come into the lab. So I'll explain to you about how we make field jackets. So say we have this fossil here lying on the ground. One of the things that we do is we very rarely will actually just go and yank a fossil out of the ground and throw it in our backpack and take it back to the museum. The reason we don't do that is that fossils are actually really fragile. Take a look at this fossil. You see that big crack running through it? Fossils are very fragile. Sometimes even before they come out of the ground, they're already broken. So we want to minimize the amount that we have to move the fossil around as we're getting it out of the ground. So what we'll do, if you can imagine that sitting in the bone bed, what we'll do is we'll dig around the outside. We want to find the edges of that bone. And once that's done, we'll dig down around it. We'll basically put the bone on a pedestal, and then we'll wrap it up in a layer of plaster and burlap. So plaster is basically just like plaster Paris, and burlap is a coarse fabric. So we wrap that around the top of the fossil, and that makes a hard shell on the top. So once it's dry, we dig underneath the fossil, and then we flip it out of the ground. And sometimes we'll put a cap jacket on the top as well. So what we're left with is the fossil, all of the rock that's around the fossil, and it's all wrapped up in that nice plaster and burlap field jacket. So that is how most of the fossils in our lab come into the facility. And then our fossil preparators have the exciting task of taking the fossils out of those field jackets, gluing them together, cleaning them up, and getting them ready to either put out on display or to go back into collections. And so we have a variety of different ways that we prepare fossils here in our lab. So this table here, this is one of our preparators tables, and we've got a couple of different tools that can be used. So this little tool here, this is called a carbide pin. So you see it's got a little tip there, and that's just used basically for scraping the top of a fossil off. So little fossil like that. And this tool is basically just used for scraping the mud off the surface. So it's a very, very, requires a lot of patience, a very time-consuming process. We will also use dental picks. I've got an example of a dental pick here. So dental pick, just like your dentist would use. So we would scrape the surface of the bone with that as well. We also use toothbrushes. So we actually steal a lot of tools from dentists for our fossil preparation. And you can see this is just a bucket of water too. So sometimes we just use water and a toothbrush to kind of loosen that matrix up. Sorry, the matrix is what we call the bone around the rock. And I have to show you this because these are brand new to our lab and we really love them. This is a sandbag. And so this is when we're preparing a fossil, we'll like stick it on top of the sandbag, kind of like that. And that just keeps the bone from moving around as we're working on it. And look, they have dinosaurs on them. Isn't that exciting? This is one of our volunteers in the lab made these for us. We think they're pretty cool. All right. So there's two fossils I really want to show you in the lab. These are our two favorite. So if you want to follow me over here. So this guy here is a skull of a Pachyrhinosaurus. This one is from Pipestone Creek. And here we have a nifty little model I can show you. So that is a Pachyrhinosaurus skull. And this, what you're looking at here, is the skull is basically lying sideways like that. And so here's the tip of the nose. There's the big bony bump over the nose, the boss. Here's the eye socket right there. And then our Pachyrhinosaurs too, they have this cool little spike in the middle of their forehead. And that's what this thing is here. So this is a specimen. We nicknamed this one Boswell. This was actually collected in 2002. So probably way before most of you were born. And it actually waited 10 years before anyone even opened the jacket to prepare it. But now Boswell is fully prepared. We've prepared the other side as well. So this guy is about ready to go on display. So Boswell is a pretty cool specimen. Over here, we have another skull of a Pachyrhinosaur I want to show you. And this one is much fresher out of the field. We collected this one in 2024, so not last summer, but the summer before that. This one is called Big Sam. So Big Sam is also a skull. So what you're looking at is basically sitting like that. So there's the big bony bump over the nose. Here's the anatomically correct eyeball. So that's the eye socket right there. It hasn't been prepared out yet, but the eye socket will be there. These are the bumps over the eyes right there. And then we have part of the frill. This part of the back of the skull is also preserved as well. So Big Sam, this is the name of the skull here, is one of the biggest Pachyrhinosaurs we've ever found. So we were really excited when we found this. And when it was in the bone bed, it was actually flipped upside down like that. So it's preserved kind of with the bottom of the skull facing up. And so as I was saying over there, what we did, we uncovered the skull, we dug around it, put it on a pedestal, dug underneath it, and we flipped that jacket over. The jacket weighed over 1,000 pounds. It took 6 people to flip it over. And so this was actually the side that was facing the ground. So that's what we're working on first. And one of the neat things about Pipestone Creek is that it is a very, very densely packed bone bed. Like there's a lot of bones that are all jumbled together. And all of these bones that you see on the table around the skull all came out of this one jacket. So we got some ribs, we have some vertebra, we have this is part of a Pachyrhinosaurus hip that was also in the jacket along with the skull. So this jacket is being prepared. It'll probably take another 16 months or so, but about 1.5 years to fully prepare this guy. And every day that we work on this, we find something new. So it's a very exciting skull. And so I think we have just enough time to go back into our collections area. So this is where we keep our fossil collections, things that are waiting to be prepared and things that are fully prepared. So it's actually through these big Jurassic Park style doors here.
Da, 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 da. Here we go.
So these are actually really big doors. You can see they go all the way to the top. One day we might get like a fossil draft or something in here, we have hopes. But in here, so this is our fossil collections room. So you can see we've got all kinds of fossils lying out on tables here. Most of these are prepared. They're just waiting for that number, kind of that library book barcode. Once these specimens have those, they'll go into our permanent collections. So if we come over here, I'll show you what some of these drawers look like. So these are fossils that have been fully prepared, and they have numbers, and they're ready for someone to come and study them. So all of these things are ribs. We've got more ribs as well. Because every Pachyrhinosaur's got a bunch of ribs, we have a lot of them in the bone bed. But we also have other fossils of other dinosaurs as well, including the fossils of some carnivorous dinosaurs. So that guy there, that is an Albertosaurus tooth. And we find Albertosaurus teeth in the bone bed, not because the Albertosaurus died in the same event that the Pachyrhinosaurs did, but because they came in and they were eating the dead Pachyrhinosaurs after they died. So animals like Albertosaurus, they're like sharks in that they continuously replace their teeth. And so after the Pachyrhinosaurs died in the flood, the Albertosaurus would have smelled all the dead animals and they would have been very excited. It would have been like a big buffet for them, an all-you-can-eat buffet. So they would have come in, they would have been feeding on those dead Pachyrhinosaurs. And as they're feeding, their teeth fell out and got left with the dead Pachyrhinosaurs. So that's why we actually find quite a number of Albertosaurus teeth in the bone bed. So we got some big ones, we've got some little ones, and these guys are always exciting to find. One of the neat things about carnivorous dinosaur teeth is that if you look really closely, they have these, we call these serrations, these little jagged grooves along the edge. That's basically like the teeth of a steak knife. So that's basically for slicing through flesh. So we've got a lot of Pachyrhinosaurs, we have Albertosaurus, we've got lots of duckbill dinosaurs in our collections as well. And we also have some things that aren't dinosaurs. So this guy, for example, this is an ammonite. So an ammonite is basically a squid with a shell that lived basically at the same time as the dinosaurs. So we've got a couple of marine fossils as well in our collections. And we also have some Ice Age mammals too. We got some mammoth tusks and things like that. So that basically is the quick and dirty of the behind the scenes part of the museum. Now I think we have time for questions. We should have lots of time for questions.
So much time for questions.
Yeah, so I want to know what you guys want to know.
Well, first and foremost, this totally rocked. Like, of all the programs we've done, this is my personal favorite because we got to explore so much. I also love that we passed a sign that said no photo and video recording as we went into this room. It feels extra rebellious to be here today, so thank you for that. We're going to dive in with our Kahoot first to have some fun with some kids and some questions, and then we're going to dive with all your queries. So please, YouTubers, start sharing in the chat. Our StreamYard classes, we're going to come to you many times because we've got a nice long time for Q&A, but we're going to begin with this little 4-question quiz to test your understanding, have some fun. A few of you are already here, and Emily, if you want to help us with any clues along the way, you are welcome to chime in. For those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is Emily and I's everlasting respect. So we're going to dive in and do this. And I will note for our classes too, if you have extra questions after the broadcast is done, email them to me. I will get them to Emily. We'll get all your dino queries answered. So excited for your enthusiasm. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Question 1. People have been around for about 300,000 years. How long did dinosaurs rule the earth? Is it 300,000 years also? 1,000,000 years? 18 million years? Or over 180 million years? What do we think? I mean, dinosaurs were around a really long time, Emily. Like, so long.
Yes, dinosaurs were around for a long, long time compared to people.
I always like the description that we are closer to Tyrannosaurus Rex than T-Rex was to Stegosaurus. Like, and that's literally true. Like, they... back in time, a little bit closer to T-Rex than they are to the first dinosaurs. Most of our audience got this right. Over 180 million years. Way to go, guys. Energetic Jaguar takes our lead. As we go to question 2. Birds or dinosaurs? We did not address this today, but Emily, do you want to give us any hints for the next 20 seconds?
Well, let me show you. Over here, we have a bird. in our dinosaur collection. So,
I mean, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Yeah. By the way, I mean, not a bird, not a dinosaur. I hope you do get a giraffe through that giant door one day. That would be a lot of fun. Most of our audience, you guys got this. Yes, birds are dinosaurs. When you see a chickadee, you are seeing a living dinosaur, which sounds crazy, but is absolutely true and is something that we did not know about 50 years ago. So I love when we get new science developments. All right. This is a multi-select. More than one of these are right, but they're not all right. Which of these can we find as fossils? Full body skeletons, footprints, poop, or dino DNA encrusted in mosquitoes trapped in amber? What do we think? We saw a footprint earlier. There's one on the screen. We've certainly seen full skeletons. Can we get poo as well? There's a special term for that, Emily. What is it?
It's coprolites.
Coprolites. If you hear scientists sounding really fancy and they're like, oh, coprolites, that is just a big fossil pile of poo. So a lot of you thought footprints. The fewest of you thought dino DNA encrusted in amber. Unfortunately, we cannot replicate Jurassic Park. As cool as that would be, we have to suffice with cool fossils and researchers like Emily, which is pretty amazing. All right. This is a tricky one. I intentionally threw this in. Alberta dinosaurs are the biggest animals ever found on Earth. Is this true or false? Wow. They're really big. We've covered a lot of really big stuff, but I love throwing this in. And don't worry if you get it wrong, because it's all meant for learning. 3 seconds to go. Would you be pleased to know that the biggest animal on Earth lives right now and is a blue whale, which is bigger than any dinosaur ever was? Because false is our correct answer to this. Dinosaurs are huge. They're not blue whales. So get out there and go whale watching is the moral of the story. All right. Victoria's Tiger is second, and first for all the marbles. Drum roll. Smart Seahorse is the winner. Way to go. If you are any of these folks, let us know what you are in the chat. But we're going to dive in with questions. So I have a question before I head to our virtual elementary crew and our La Vie crew, which is, you said that dinosaur teeth come in like shark teeth, that they're constantly replenishing. How do we know that?
So we actually know that because we actually have found teeth jaws with teeth still in them. And actually, I can show you what that looks like really quick here. So the great thing about being in our collections is we have props.
So satisfying to have the big wheel to turn to get to the props too.
Oh, yes. Give me a second here.
Take your time. I love
here it is.
Like a drawer that's going to have the answer to this. It's so cool.
Yep. So here's a dinosaur jaw. And if we turn on its side, you can see the teeth in there. So that's a tooth there. And if we turn it on its side here, you can see that is a cross section of a tooth. So that is a new tooth coming up under. So this will eventually fill this tooth socket. And so we can basically take sections of these and we can see that every time a tooth comes up, another one forms underneath it. So that's how we kind of know dinosaurs are like sharks. Yeah. You would not see this in a human skull. So as humans and a lot of mammals, we have two sets of teeth. We have baby teeth, we have adult teeth, and that's it. Dinosaurs and actually most other vertebrates have got continuously replacing teeth. So yeah, we know that based on the fossil record.
Look at that. I've never seen a fossil like that in my whole life. Like, that is really totally novel to me. So thank you so much for bringing that out. How cool.
Yeah.
Kids time, virtual elementary school. We're going to Miss Art's class first. If you want to unmute your mic and come on in, you're ready to go. Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us today. I have Elizabeth, who is wondering what your most rarest dinosaur is at the museum.
Ooh, the rarest fossil to find.
Yeah, that is a great question. And so generally speaking, with dinosaurs, the smaller a dinosaur is, the more rare it is. And so by far, our rarest dinosaurs are our smallest. And of the small dinosaurs, the most rare are actually the raptor-like dinosaurs. So the ones that, if you took like a velociraptor from Jurassic Park and you shrank it down to about that big and you put feathers on it, that's kind of what our raptors look like. So it's those small feathered dinosaurs that are really, really rare in the fossil record. So we get super excited whenever we find them. We find some of their teeth, but we very rarely find their body fossils. Yeah. So every time we find one in the field, we like do cartwheels because they're really exciting.
Cartwheel for us right now. That would be the first in history. No, don't do it. Save yourself. North Topsail Beach. We'll head to you guys. And Emily, if there's anywhere you want to be for Q&A, by all means, we've got 15 minutes together, so lots of time. Okay. Hello, North Top Da Vinci Academy. Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Good.
Welcome in.
That's awesome. I have a few questions. My first question is, could there be dinosaur fossils on our beach?
Ooh, and North Carolina, North Topsail Beach. Emily, do we have dinosaurs there? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so North Carolina is actually one of the places that's pretty famous for its fossils. There is a great museum in North Carolina if you ever get a chance to go. But yes, so in North Carolina, you can find dinosaurs, and you can also find a lot of marine animals as well. So just like the edge of the Atlantic Ocean was there at the time of the dinosaurs as well. So we start to see some of those marine reptiles as well. So yes, you can find dinosaurs where you are too.
Super cool. Like, again, the fact that you know that offhand is so neat. And we will come back to you guys a bunch. I'm going to do a round with everybody, and we'll be right back. Speaking of where fossils are, another question from me. We'll take some from YouTube in a minute. So we have this seaway in the middle of North America. And a lot of the fossils that I've certainly seen as a boy are in Montana, Alberta. They're on the west side of that seaway. Do we have bone beds on the east side of that seaway, sort of in the middle of the continent where they're really prominent, or is there nothing? I don't know.
Yeah, really good question. And the answer is in Canada, we don't, because the glaciers basically came and they scraped off all of those dinosaur-bearing rocks. From the northern part of Alberta. When you get into the southern states on the kind of the eastern side of that seaway, they do start to find some dinosaurs, but they're nowhere near as well known as the ones on the western side. So we know a little bit about them, but there's a lot of paleontologists that are out there looking to find dinosaurs on that eastern continent of Appalachia, because we really don't have a great idea about what was happening there at the time of the dinosaurs.
How neat is that? Thank you so much for that. All right, so many on YouTube. We're going to take a few of those, and then we're going to head back to our live classes. Elena in grade 2 wants to know, how heavy are some of the bones? You talked about the 1,000-pound jacket that required 6 people. Are there bigger bones than that? What's the deal?
So the unfortunate thing about dinosaur bones is that they are really heavy. So I'll show you a bone out here, give you a sense of what they look like. So this bone here, this is a toe bone of a duckbill dinosaur, a really, really big duckbill dinosaur. This thing's about the size of a school bus. So this toe bone here, this probably weighs about 20 pounds or so, solid rock. And so this bone, I can carry it pretty easily around the lab here. If I had to carry this out of the field, like it was in a field jacket, it would probably be, the jacket would probably add maybe 15, 20 pounds to it. And that's starting to be about 40 pounds. That's like a third of my body weight. So it starts to become really hard to carry fossils. And so we have to be very creative about how we get fossils out of the field. Fun story from this fall. We had a big femur, actually, of this dinosaur. The femur was about 1 meter long, about maybe 4 feet. We estimated the weight at 300 pounds. And we had to drag that up the side, basically up the side of a cliff.
Cool.
So that was hard. So sometimes we use machinery, sometimes we use helicopters, sometimes we just need brute force. But the fact that fossils are quite heavy is one of the challenges that we face as dinosaur paleontologists.
I will say for our audience too, on YouTube, we've done a program where we've featured some videos of you out in the field and getting some of those fossils out of the ground. It's really, really cool. So if you want to follow up with Dr. Emily, I can't encourage that for our classes enough. All right, one more from YouTube, and then we're going to go back to our live group. Question from Blake. Why do different dinosaurs have different teeth?
Why do different dinosaurs have different teeth? Well, that is a great question. And just like animals today, dinosaurs had different diets depending on kind of what species of dinosaur they were. So different diets require different teeth. So our meat-eating dinosaurs, like behind me here, that's a foot of a T-Rex. Meat-eating dinosaurs had to have sharp teeth because they were basically ripping and tearing flesh. Of course, they had to dispatch their prey as well, so they had to be efficient in doing that. So meat-eating dinosaurs had those kind of sharp serrated teeth. Other dinosaurs, like our duckbill dinosaurs and our pachyrhinosaurs, they were plant eaters. And so they had special teeth for basically cutting and shearing vegetation. We actually don't think dinosaurs did a lot of actual like mastication, a lot of chewing. Most of their teeth seem to be designed for kind of slicing vegetation rather than chewing it. But yeah, so Sometimes as paleontologists, we can guess what animals were eating based on their teeth.
Yeah.
There are some dinosaurs, though, that didn't have teeth. Like our ostrich mimic dinosaurs, our ornithomimids, were toothless. So there we sort of have to guess what these animals might have been eating. So we think maybe some of them were eating insects, some of them were eating seeds.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, we have to look at that coprolite. You remember what coprolite is? That's dinosaur poop. That's how we know what dinosaurs were eating. Sometimes also when they get fossilized, they still have their last meal inside their gut.
So
that kind of helps us understand what they're eating too. But a lot of it is guesswork.
I gotta say, so I mean, you're enthused the whole time, but every time you talk about a predator eating stuff, I don't think if you had to do it for a bet, that you could not have a smile on your face as you were talking about predators eating things, and I appreciate it very, very much. I also want to note just the fact that we talked about dinosaurs that we haven't found yet. So like right now on Earth, there are 2 million plus species, 2 million different kinds of animal that we found. And we know, what, a few thousand dinosaurs only? Like, there are many, many, many thousands, if not millions of species of dinosaur over those 180 million years that we have never found as a fossil. So there's probably things that ate and did everything that there are things that do it today, which is wild. Like, if you want to be a paleontologist like Dr. Emily, you can make new discoveries all the time, which is just so, so cool.
Yep.
I'm going to head back. I don't want to keep talking, so I'm going to head to Ms. Art's group, and we'll go to Levi. We'll take a few more from YouTube, and then we'll wrap up from there. Please do email us extra questions after we're done, but Ms. Art's group, come on in again. Hey, guys.
Yeah, hey. I've got a lot of students curious about the Albertosaurus. One of the questions is from Rachel, and she's wondering how long it typically takes to prepare the skull of an Albertosaurus.
Cool question.
Oh, really good question. So actually, I have an Albertosaurus skull just around the corner here. I can show you.
Of course you do. Why not?
So this is not a real skull. This is a replica of an Albertosaurus. So Albertosaurus is, as I was saying, out in the gallery. It's about kind of a third or half the size of a T-Rex. So before I came to work here in northern Alberta, I worked in Saskatchewan. And so Saskatchewan actually has a big giant T-Rex called Scotty. And the Scotty skull took 4 years to prepare. So it took 4 years to basically get all of those bones out of the rock. Albertosaurus is a smaller dinosaur, but that doesn't necessarily mean it would take less time. Skull bones are very, very fragile, and they're also very important. So our preparators have to be extra special, extra careful when they're preparing these fossils. So I'd say if you were to find a complete skull like this in a rock, and let's say it's probably a sandstone, it would probably take 2 or 3 years to completely prepare. And again, we have to be extra special with skulls because they're rare and they contain a lot of information about the dinosaur.
Could we go a little circle around that fossil? Because it's just so beautiful to catch.
Yeah. Well, we can go sort of most of the way around it.
That is unreal. Look at that thing, man. I want to note too, so this is a real fossil, and we talked about this. When you go to museums around the world, a lot of the fossils that you'll see in museums are casts. So they're like models of a fossil that they found in the past. And the place that makes almost every one of those in the world, whether you're in Singapore, Australia, Argentina, is a place in Ontario. So Canada does a lot of the casting of fossils in the world, which I just love to highlight for our class. Emily, we're going to go back to our Topsail Beach, and then we'll take one more from YouTube after that. Levi group, come on in and take us away. Hey.
Hi. So my second question was, most people think flying reptiles and marine reptiles are dinosaurs. Why do you think?
So that's a good question. And so marine reptiles, like the ones that we saw out in the lab on the ceiling, are not dinosaurs. So sometimes things like plesiosaurs and mosasaurs and the ichthyosaurs, those are kind of like the dolphin sort of like marine reptiles, they get lumped in with dinosaurs because they lived at the same time. It's the same with things like the pterosaurs, like pterodactyl and pterodon. They're not dinosaurs. They belong to a different group of reptiles. But I think it's because they lived at the same time that they kind of get lumped into the group of dinosaurs. But you're absolutely right. Our dinosaurs primarily, they lived on land, they didn't fly, they didn't swim. And they only lived during what's called the age of dinosaurs of the Mesozoic. If they lived before that, like Dimetrodon, they're not dinosaurs. If they lived after that, so like the saber-toothed tiger, they're not dinosaurs either.
We have never had that question phrased that way ever, which is really cool. I think a way of thinking about it too is if, like, imagine 180 million years in the future, we looked back, You know, we'd call them lizards, snakes, crocodilians, but we wouldn't call everything a snake. Like a snake is a distinct group of reptiles in the same way that dinosaurs are a distinct group of reptiles. That's a really neat question. And we've also got another neat question we've never had in our history. I love this question. So Miss Grimm's class, they were our winner of our Kahoot. They want to know, if you find one of those fossils, like an Albertosaurus with something in its stomach, do you take the thing out of its stomach and now you have two fossils, or do you keep it in its stomach if you were to like highlight it in some way?
Yeah, really, really, really good question. And there are lots of examples of that where we do find carnivorous dinosaurs or carnivorous animals with the gut content in its gut. And now in paleontology, we can do super cool things with what's called CT scanning. So it's basically like a really fancy X-ray. So we can actually, if you have a gut contents, you can CT scan that, and digitally you can remove those fossils and isolate them and take a look at what it is. But you don't necessarily have to physically take them out of the gut. It's actually kind of more interesting if you leave them there, so that future paleontologists can kind of study maybe something about their digestion or how that gut content was lying. So that's one of the neat things we can do with dinosaurs now, is we can use CT scanning to digitally isolate bones without actually having to take them apart.
It's so cool. I'm putting in the chat for everyone. Attenborough and the Giant Dinosaur was a great series that highlighted this in a really cool way. We also had a CAT scan expert, a radiologist who's like studies Egyptian mummies. So they're starting to use this technology that we developed for medicine with a background in physics to understand paleontology and archaeology. Like it's all the scientists coming together in such a beautiful, neat way. So I love that you highlighted that. Thank you, Emily. Time flies when you're having fun. We are nearing the end of the period for a lot of our classes. So before we say farewell and bring in our groups to say thank you and goodbye, is there any final message about the museum, about your work you want to leave us with today?
Well, I would say definitely come and visit us if you're ever in northern Alberta, or even if you're just in Alberta in general. We have a couple of really great dinosaur museums here in this province, and as well as elsewhere in Canada and the world. So if you are into paleontology, one of the best things you can do is to get out and visit museums, meet paleontologists, do some of those programs that those museums and other facilities offer. That's the best way to get into paleontology, is to really just get involved.
Yep. No better message than that. Emily, such a thrill having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. As you well know, we're going to bring in all our groups to say a big thank you and farewell. If you're on YouTube and you want to say goodbye to and scream and yell, you can. You have our permission to annoy the principal. But virtual elementary crew, La Vie, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.